Hi, I'm John Ray, and welcome to the Thriving Podcast. I'm your host and intuitive coach, dedicated to amplifying your intuition, transforming your mind, and igniting your inner magic to create a life you're obsessed with. 2 years ago, I was burnt out as fuck in a toxic relationship and a successful tech career that I just wasn't happy in anymore. I left it all behind with no plan, and now I'm running my own business, immersed in purpose and passion, happily married to my soulmate, and living out my dreams every single day. And if you're badass enough to be listening to this podcast, then you're already on the fast track to doing the same, babe. On this podcast, we'll dive into all things life, business, heart, mind, body, and soul, empowering you to up-level your life and embody your happiest, healthiest, and hottest self. It's time to make idealistic your new realistic, because you're not just here to survive, you're here to thrive. Hey babes, welcome back to the podcast. Happy Thriving Thursday. Today is going to be a little mini episode, famous last words from me, but no, for real, it has to be because it's 11 p.m. and I'm sleepy. So we're going to keep it short and sweet today. Yeah, we're still not doing the hot girl habits. We're still, I don't know. The vibes have just they've been all over the place, and I'm loving every minute of it, of course. But yeah, you can't force inspiration that's not there. And yeah, I don't know, I'm not feeling that episode. So we'll see if I eventually come to feel it. But I think I've learned not to promise any topics on the podcast. I've already also said, like, yeah, I'm going to do this episode on how to tell intuition from anxiety. And like, I just never feel inspired to do that. I think because, I don't know, like, I get that question so often. So I'm like, yeah, I'll do an episode on it. But I don't know. I feel like because I've talked about it so much in like different contexts and to different people, and I've explained it over and over, like, it almost feels boring to me to explain. So it's like, I don't know. I'm just very much like, follow the butterflies. But anyway, yeah, today's episode's going to be just kind of a little mini episode. Really just, like I said, you got to follow the inspiration, or like basically you have to, honor the inspiration wherever it comes. Kind of like promise I made to myself with this podcast is I'm never going to force inspiration. I'm never going to force myself to record about something that I don't feel inspired to talk about. And so that's part of the reason why I'm recording this at 11 p.m. Wednesday night, because I didn't have inspiration and I was like, I'm not going to force it. And I may have talked about this before, but one of my one of my like tips with inspiration, if you're not feeling inspired, the worst thing you can do is try to put pressure on it and like actively try to think of an idea, think of what to talk about. So I was just like, okay, I'll leave it out there. I'm putting out the intention. Inspiration, please come to me before the end of today so that I can record this episode before tomorrow. And I just trust to put it out there. It was like a whirlwind of a day. I had therapy also, which like anyone who goes to therapy might relate to this, but I often forget that like on days when I have therapy, 90% of the time I'm just like out of commission for the rest of the day. Like I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm emotionally exhausted after that. Like, I don't have any more capacity. I had, like, been ambitious, and I was like, I'm going to go to therapy, and then I'm going to record the episode. And then I got home, and I was like, no, we're not doing anything else today, actually. But then I taught a pole class, and I was like, okay, normally I feel pretty hyped after class. So I was, like, trusting that I would be more amped after class to record, and then I ended up having a really awesome convo with Sindri and also with my mastermind girls. And I was like, okay, we're flowing, like we're good. And so actually what I wanted to talk about today is inspired by a whole combo of things, but really the conversation I had with Sindri. And I actually want to read a couple messages from our conversation. I'll give you a little peek. He sent me this one message that just like really made me laugh, and it really stuck out to me. And a couple things we talked about. He's just like also, I feel like he's just this like wholesome like unicorn of like happiness. Like he's just happy all the time. Like he rarely gets sad. And he even was like, he listened to my last episode and I was like, oh, what'd you think? And he's like, yeah, like it was good. I felt like I couldn't really relate to it much because I don't really get sad that often. And he's just like amazing. Obviously he gets sad. It's not like he's like a robot or something, but like he just has this really high, quick bounce back rate, and he doesn't really ever get stressed. He's just like such an inspiration to me. And he's like really inspiring to talk to sometimes, to like realize how different, like how differently he looks at life than I do a lot of the time. So I think it's so easy when we're in our own heads all the time to forget that, other people don't actually think the same way we do. Other people don't have the same desires that we do. Other people don't have the same challenges that we do. Other people don't have the same beliefs, especially the same limiting beliefs that we do. And so what I said to him, so we were talking about, I've been going through another layer of many things, but one of the themes that's come up for me many times, that I've talked about many times before in my business so far, is, the masculine feminine balance, right? Toxic productivity, achievement-based worth, all that stuff. Very commonplace for a lot of us in America. And so I said, I realized too, I feel like kind of a crisis if I'm not judging my days off of my work productivity. I feel like, what is the meaning of my day? What's my goal if it's not related to work? And obviously, we could dive into a whole other episode about that. Obviously, I know how to answer that question to myself. But that was something that came up. It was kind of a realization of like, oh, this even deeper layer of like, of just how deeply ingrained that, work focused, like toxic productivity mindset and achievement based worth is in me, even though I have peeled so many layers and done so much work on this with myself, like that's still coming up, right? And so I sent this to him. And he says, oh, geez, is this obsession with work an American thing or your family thing? Because I've talked to him about how, like, all the women in my family are like this. And, we're very ambitious, hard workers. And obviously there's nothing wrong with being ambitious and being a hard worker. It's about the energy balance. That's for another episode. But what stood out to me was how he just kind of was like how foreign it was to him. I was like, wow, like, why is this message standing out to me so much? And I was like, I feel like I'm not used to that being like a foreign concept to someone, And I really thought about it and I was like, wow, you're right. Like, I think it's both. I think it's like a my family thing. I think it's an America thing. Like, I feel like it's so commonplace for us to be like, yeah, it's so ingrained in society, da da da. But it's like, actually, it's not everyone's society that's ingrained in, right? And it really highlighted to me how much like it's just a story, right? How much like everything is just a story that we tell ourselves. And if someone else hasn't been told that story, like that's just not a thing for them, right? That's just not even, it's not in their reality, right? That's never something he's had to deal with because he's never been told that story, right? He's never been told the stories that I've been told, that I grew up with, that I've told myself now over and over, that are related to working harder to be successful and like basing your worth off your productivity and your achievement and all of that. So it's just never been in his field. So it's never been something he's dealt with, and we've had other conversations about this where it's just like, kind of realizing like the things that you struggle with, you assume other people struggle with them, and the things that come really easily to you, right? You don't even realize those are huge struggles for other people. So for me, it was just this really kind of visceral reminder and like perspective expander of, it's just a story, right? And it really kind of helps you like take it down. I feel like sometimes we can put our limiting beliefs up on a pedestal in a way of like, we recognize the limiting belief and then we're like, oh yeah, like I deal with this. Like, it's just that limiting belief of like that I'm not worthy of this, or this limiting belief of like that I have to work harder to be successful. And almost like we use the awareness of the limiting belief as an excuse, right, to continue to energize. We kind of act as if like it's out of our control a bit of like, well, I'm aware that's why I do that, right? It's almost like slipping into a victim mentality. Like even with like, ADHD, like it'd be really, I do slip into this sometimes. And this is also a reason why, like for a long time, I like was very resistant to saying that I have ADHD because I never wanted it to sound like or to feel like to myself that I was like that I was like blaming it, right? Or that I was like or that I was like, slipping, not trying to, but even just like accidentally slipping into that victim mindset. Like, this is out of my control, right? The reason we acknowledge these blocks, like whether it's ADHD or some other, neurodivergence or a limiting belief or any kind of, block or setback you have in your life, right? It's kind of like this, I always use the metaphor, if you're like walking down a path and then there's a big rock in the way of your path, and that rock can represent any obstacle, right? It can represent ADHD, it could represent your childhood trauma, it can represent things you've gone through in the past, it can represent your limiting beliefs, whatever it is. If you come up against this rock, you can either, one, ignore it, not acknowledge that it's there at all. And if you do that, you're going to just keep walking into the rock and you're not going to move forward, right? So obviously that's not the most ideal course of action. You can acknowledge that the rock is there, and then you can go into victim mode, right? And then you can kind of be helpless to the rock and be like, oh, this huge rock is in my path. I can't move forward. There's a giant rock. Like, what am I supposed to do? They don't have a rock in their path. They can just keep walking forward. Right? Now I'm going to be conscious. Okay. I want to say, side note, I know I say right, like at the end of every sentence. That's something I noticed I started doing in my business. I do it specifically like when I'm on a podcast or on an IG live or something like that. Like when I'm presenting a concept that I think it's like a subconscious thing of like, I know people are going to relate to it, or I'm expecting people to relate to it. So like I say right and I say, I think it's like, because I'm like, I know you know what I mean? That's like, anyway, I'm going to be super conscious of it now because I already was conscious of it. And then my mom and my sister both were like, did you say right all the time? I was like, yes, I'm aware. But anyway, again, oh my God, this is like so actually perfectly on theme because I'm calling awareness to it, right? And that's the first step, acknowledging it, and then you're aware, and then you can start to shift and change. So anyway, right, option 2 is you can be like, oh my God, there's this huge rock. Now I'm stuck. Now I'm blocked by this rock. Well, yeah, I know I'm not moving forward, but it's because of this rock. They don't have rocks. That's why they can still move forward on their path, right? Third option is you can acknowledge it, but then you can take an empowered perspective. Yes, there's this rock in my way. Now, because I have this gift of awareness and acknowledging that this obstacle is here, I can figure out what I'm going to do about it, right? Well, I know there's a rock, so I know that like walking right into the rock's not going to work. So I can do what? I can walk around it. Yeah, it might take a little more energy and effort. I might have a little bit longer of a journey now because I have to walk around this rock. I have to walk around this obstacle now. Yeah, maybe some other people don't have to spend the extra time and energy to walk around this rock, but at least I'm not just like stuck behind the rock forever, right? Maybe I can climb over the rock or whatever. Maybe I can try and push the rock out of the way. Maybe I can like go find a dynamite stick and blow up the rock. It's like the acknowledging the block, the awareness of the block is actually empowering to you, right? That's actually your gift of now I can use this knowledge to my advantage. And every time we acknowledge a block or an obstacle or a limiting belief or whatever it is, we have that option to choose to go into victim mode and be helpless to it and be like, it's out of my control, or to choose to remember that we always have the power of choice and we can choose to take an empowered perspective. And now how can I move forward with this knowledge, right? So to go back to the example of like ADHD is by me being in denial of that, it actually was hurting me more than helping me because I would be like, well, I should just be able to function like everyone else. And I should just be able to, come home and then check my phone and then go inside and then, do this and then get in the shower, and just kind of move through the motions normally, right? But because my brain functions differently, I recognize and then accept that I have to be more extreme in order to function the same way. So for me, I come home and I know that I actually can't stop and let myself check my phone while I'm still in the car because then I'll get stuck and sit on there for like half an hour. So I have to be a little more extreme and come home, turn off my car right away, go inside, walk inside, turn the shower on. And I need to be extreme with my actions to keep myself kind of on track But by acknowledging that, like, that's the kind of structure I need, then I'm actually creating like systems and creating a structure where I can function more efficiently. Yeah, does that make sense? So, and again, it's like kind of the power of acknowledging and then accepting instead of acknowledging and resisting or trying to fight it, right? It's like if you broke your ankle, I love to use the physical examples because I think it really helps lock it in because, again, our logical minds are survival brains. Like we love the tangible and the physical, and it's, believing is seeing, and we relate to things when we talk about them in terms of our senses. So it's like if you break your ankle, right? And it's like if you broke your ankle and then you would expect yourself to just be able to walk at a normal pace on your broken ankle. And you're not acknowledging like that you have a broken ankle that needs to be addressed. So you're going to be walking way less efficiently and in a lot more pain with a lot more struggle if you're trying to walk like you have a not broken ankle when you have a broken ankle. But if you acknowledge the broken ankle and you accept, I have a broken ankle, now how can I work with this instead of against it? Then you can get crutches. You can get a cast and a boot. And then you can actually move way faster with the crutches. And to connect it back to like the ADHD example, for anyone that also like deals with anything, mental health related, because again, it can be difficult. You can kind of sometimes feel like you're gaslighting yourself because like you can't see it. Right. And that's always our problem. Is like, it's hard to trust when you can't see it is, it's that feeling of, well, I shouldn't have to be so extreme. Like that's extreme to have to do that. But would you call somebody extreme for using crutches with a broken ankle? No, you would call them extreme maybe for using crutches with a not broken ankle. Right. But that's because with the ankle, like you can see it. And really, so like with the mental health things, it's like you're still telling yourself, I'm fine, I should be able to function normal. And it's like, well, no, like, again, I'm not saying like to look at it like a disability or like you're broken, but I hope you get what I'm saying is like just acknowledging like the cards you're dealt, right? Like acknowledging the hand you're dealt and like, yeah, how can I just play to my strengths and how can I work with what I've got and how can I acknowledge and address the blocks so that I can actually, be more empowered about it. So that was a whole tangent, but to take it back to the limiting beliefs, like I heard someone say this once, I don't remember where I heard it, but they pointed out, they're like, we say, oh, I realize like this is in my subconscious and like this is why I do this because I have this belief in my subconscious that's driving me to do this action or to not do this or whatever it is. And they pointed out, they're like, well, notice that by you saying that just now, like it's not in your subconscious anymore, right? It's not in your subconscious because you're clearly consciously aware of it. You just told me about it. Right. And so that was a crazy epiphany for me because it's like, wow, you're right. I'm aware of it now. And so once you're aware of it, now it's an excuse. Now it's just a story that you're actually continuing to tell yourself and continuing to subscribe to. As soon as you're aware of the story, you actually have the choice right then and there to rewrite the story and to choose differently. Right. It's still habitual. It's still familiar. So I'm not saying that it's like that easy of just snapping your fingers, but once you have the awareness, it's your responsibility then to notice and interrupt and choose differently when you notice, right? That's why building like awareness is the first step to change always. This actually is not what I was talking about at all. I went on a whole tangent that was not even what I was going to talk about. I mean, it's kind of related, but not really. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think I was just talking about, how we become aware of these limiting beliefs we deal with, like I became aware of, oh, yeah, I always think I'm not working hard enough. And then we always can kind of come back to it and be like, oh, yeah, it's that thing that I think I don't work hard enough. But it's like, okay, well, you're aware of it. So like what we're still holding on to it for a reason, right? It's like once you're aware, you can be like, okay, well, why am I still holding on to this? Right? Why am I still subscribing to this story? Like, how is it still serving me? And how can I rewrite the story now? So that was kind of like a whole realization and just really not realization, but reminder for me, just a reminder of really how true that, it's just a story you tell yourself is and how powerful and how much power and choice that actually gives you to recognize and remember it's all just a story you tell yourself. And you can choose to tell yourself, an empowering story or a disempowering story. And that is literally your choice at any time. So the other piece of this that is actually what I was planning on initially talking about before I just went on this entire rant, which I'm happy I did. But the other piece of this that I want to touch on is what I made a reel about today is when you really remember that everything is the story you tell yourself, it kind of just, I feel like it really helps expand your perspective again and remember that like it's all not that serious. Like it's literally not that serious. Like life, everything in life, like it's not that serious. Right? Like if everything is just a story we're telling ourselves, again, it's like perception is reality. Your perception is your reality. It's, the TikTok trend, Delulu is the Salulu, right? That's from a while ago. But like be delusional. It's like literally your experience is shaped by the stories you tell yourself and by the way that you perceive the world. You perceive the world based on the stories that you tell yourself, right? And it's like, I've heard people say, I'm not sure who, again, I think I've heard multiple people talk about this, like with manifestation or with anything. It's like, oh, so you just like make stuff up, right? Like you just tell yourself things that aren't true, quote unquote. And it's like, oh, I think Manifestation Babe talked about this once, or I heard someone say that she talked about it, but I've heard other people talk about the same concept of like, she said something like, yeah, well, you're lying to yourself all day long. So I just tell myself positive lies instead of negative ones, right? Which is kind of true again, because, it's all about perspective. And, I always say every experience is neutral. Every experience is neutral. And it's just the meaning we apply to it, right? So every experience you can perceive as negative or positive. And it literally is just the meaning you apply, and your whole life is just the meaning you apply to it. Every experience is the meaning you apply to it. You can choose how to perceive, anything as negative or positive. It rains. Oh, that's negative because now it's not sunny, right? Oh, that's positive because we're not in drought, right? I've definitely talked about this. I don't know. I've talked about it in so many places. I'm having deja vu. But, you go through a breakup. That's negative because your heart's broken. That's positive because now you're learning more about like what you deserve and what you want in a relationship. And you're like opening up and creating space for like better love to come in, right? Someone who's more compatible for you. You don't get a job that you wanted. And it's like, it's just that, one door opens, another closes, or one door closes, another opens kind of thing, right? Two sides of the coin. I mean, I think everyone understands this concept, but literally does apply to every single experience. There's always a gift, it's like we actually can't experience good without experiencing bad, right? We have to experience bad in order to know what good even is, right? Like without the sour, the sweet wouldn't taste. So all that to say, was another kind of little tangent. All that to say, like literally everything is just what you decide it is, right? Life is the meaning you apply to it. And when you remember that, it's just like, oh yeah, it's really just like, it's all a game, like we're all just like playing a game, like down here on earth. It's like everything is just, we literally are playing make believe. Like, yes, like things are happening, but it's like, if every experience just means to you whatever you perceive it to mean, like we kind of are just playing make believe, right? That's why in my reel, I was like, quick reminder, it's not that serious. We're all just here playing dress up for shiggles. Just have fun with it. I feel like it's really kind of what's happening. Okay. So I feel like we all just need the reminder sometimes of it's not that serious, right? I mean, all we have is the present moment, and the present moment is literally whatever you make it to be, right? It's whatever you want it to be. And, we know in Manifestation 101, your external reality is just a reflection of your internal reality. And so whatever you make your internal world, like mindset is everything. And that's like another thing going back to my conversation with Sindri is, he was talking about, I was like, what's your secret? Like you've just literally always been like, so you're such a happy person all the time. Not that I'm like not happy, but I've definitely had like way more mental health ups and downs and emotional ups and downs. And, we were talking about like, it's not like he's had like a perfect life. Nobody has. And he's like, yeah, well, even when I was going through this and this, I still was like pretty decently happy, like, and he's like, I think I was just always, really able to like accept, like, this is what I'm working with and just be grateful for what I had. He was just, like, he's so wholesome and perfect. Like, I mean, obviously those are the keys. Those are totally the keys to happiness. Like I talk about that all the time is acceptance and gratitude, but it just goes to show like, because his mindset and his like inner world was acceptance and gratitude, it didn't matter what was happening in the external. He was able to have a joyful experience, you know, and he was happy for the most part, you know? So yeah, that's really what I wanted to come on here and just say and just remind everyone is it's not that serious. Like, honestly, think about whatever's stressing you out right now. And like, honestly, what I always come back to, and it just really helps me, like, I mean, just zoom out and expand your perspective for a minute, you know, and remember, like, if you've ever gone to that website, you can go to this website and like, I forgot what it's called, but you can like look at like the size. It like, you can keep scrolling in and out forever and it will go all the way down to like the size of like the smallest particle and then all the way out to like the biggest size of like, you know, the entire universe and like all the galaxies. And that like helps put shit into perspective so freaking quick. Like, go to that website. If you're ever feeling like if you're caught up on some bullshit or some whatever it is, if you're in your head, if you're stressing about work, if you're stressing about your relationship, you're stressing about your health, your weight, you know, your house, whatever, if you're stressing about literally anything, like go on that website and like just scroll a bit and like just remember like how massive this world is, you know, like how much smaller things go, how much bigger things go. We are literally on one planet in one solar system in one galaxy. And then you're like, oh my God, like, wow, really, like nothing matters. And that was another thing I said to Sinjin in our conversation. I was like, I feel like the secret to life is just to remember it's not that serious. It's all a game and nothing matters. So just have fun. Like in the best way. It's like nothing matters in the best way, right? Because nothing has inherent meaning. So you can just choose what everything means. And it's so freeing. It's like, you can make it whatever you want. You can literally write whatever story you want to write. I know this can sound a little crazy, but it's true. And like, just play around with it, you know, just play around with like, how can I rewrite the story? Like, what is the narrative that's running in my head right now? And how can I rewrite it? Right? What new story do I want to subscribe to? And yeah, just like, how can I have fun? I talked about this in my Flow into Focus series when I was talking about how to bring more flow and fun into your life and the balance between work, rest, and play. And I was talking about how, you know, we have this balance between work and rest. And again, like this is stronger in American culture and society, but a lot of us tend to have this like strong imbalance towards work, right? And we can tend to be like 80% work, 20% rest, right? Or like we work, and then we like bounce back and it's like, oh my God, okay, I'm burnt out. Now I need to rest. And we kind of like can oscillate like, or like a boomerang back and forth between the two, right? And it's like, actually, the key to balance, how I look at it, is not even like 50% work, 50% rest. It's actually making life 100% play. Okay? Hear me out, because what I mean by that is every single action you take, it's not actually about the action. It's about the energy and intention behind the action. I think I've mentioned this before, but I've talked about this. My coach talks about this. I've heard other people talk about this. You know, burnout is not actually from how much action you're taking or what actions you're taking. It's about the energy and the intention behind the actions. So yesterday I was actually feeling like really overwhelmed with work, and I was like, okay, maybe I need to like just take a complete break, like take a week off from work and not do any work at all and just like relax and be on vacation. As soon as I made that shift internally, I took that internal pressure off of myself with work. I felt so much lighter. I felt so much more free. Didn't feel stressed at all. And the next day, I actually, even later that night, I actually was like, I'm fine to work. Like, I don't need to take a whole week off work. I just need to keep working with this mindset, right? With this energy of like not putting pressure on myself. And I think that's overlooked a lot because, you know, we can think like we just need to change the actions or stop doing these actions or do different actions. It's like, actually, if you can change your intention and your energy behind the action, then that changes the action, right? It's that same kind of thing of like change the context, changes the content. I love how that theme keeps coming up. So yeah, I could go a whole lot deeper into that, but I'm not going to right now. But yeah, basically just this idea of like, literally like how can, like life is your playground. How can you make life your playground? You know, how can you bring that playful energy into every experience? How can you bring that like, you know, make-believe energy? Like, what do you want to choose to believe? What do you want to choose to see? What do you want to choose to experience? And you literally have that power. Yeah, it's not that serious. Just have fun with it. It's just like the power of the mind, honestly. Like the power of the mind, and then your power, because you have the power to, then gain this conscious awareness, of the power of your mind. And then it's like, you can now wield the power. You can harness the power. So yeah, I don't even know what the heck this episode was. I guess just like a reminder of, your power of choice, power of your mind. And, you don't have to take life so seriously. It's really all just for fun. You're literally here to have fun. If you're not having fun, ask yourself why you're not having fun and then change it, because you have that power. All right. I hope you guys liked this episode. If you did, don't forget to send this to someone who you think you could use this reminder. Leave it a rating, leave it a review, and definitely message me and let me know your thoughts. Let me know what landed for you. I love you so much. Thank you for listening, and hope you have an amazing, magical rest of your day. Don't forget to stop and take a breath, smile, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.